welcome to Better Gaming, the podcast that's all about making the gambling and gaming industry safe, secure, and socially balanced. I'm your host, Jim, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by two startup founders who are seeking to shake up the world of gambling compliance. Hello, Ralitsa and Isabelle from CompliancePlay.
Hi, thank you for having us.
It's great to have you on. Now, before we get into the detail, I wanted to take a moment to chat about compliance in the gambling industry. For me and for my day job, compliance is a really big thing. It's the backbone of my role as a lottery manager, and it's definitely not seen as a box ticking exercise and following the rules. It's more of a system that creates a level playing field amongst operators, ensures a level of standards, and also protects vulnerable players while allowing growth of the industry. I think compliance has been seen as the boring bit, the necessary evil that slows everything down. But this is where I think AI can help and maybe flip that narrative to become a competitive advantage for operators rather than a burden. And that's exactly what our guests today are pioneering with their startup CompliancePlay. So starting with you, Isabelle, can you give me some background about yourself and your compliance experience?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Belgium, and how my career started was I was educated in business and law. I attended the University of Law, then I did an LLM program at Sorbonne University, some more economics at INSEAD, and recently I'm also a researcher in responsible gambling. And so my career started actually in financial regulation. I did not know where I was going to end up. And just before the pandemic, I was still doing financial regulation. And then when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden we got a flux of clients who wanted to set up their own, let's say, sports betting brand, the online casino. And I thought to myself, I don't know what this is. I don't know anything about it. And we just dived right in. And I think that was probably in my life the best thing about the pandemic, at least for me, is that there was nothing better to do. All I did was learn about the industry, dived right in, and I couldn't be more grateful of how it worked out. And the best thing that came out of it also is that I met Ralitsa, my co-founder, and we started this business and we had the same vision. We still do, obviously. And yeah, I'll let her introduce herself.
So I was born in Bulgaria. I studied my university degree there in Sofia. So in 2007, I was recruited from a gaming company, and therefore I moved to UK. Since 2007, I've been working in various roles within the gaming industry. I've been working as project management, product management, customer services, business analyst. In the last 6 years, I've been working in different compliance-facing roles, like compliance manager and lately consulting roles. And this is where I met Isabelle when we were doing different consulting projects, advising clients how they can enter different markets, how they can set up their gambling businesses, how they can stay compliant, how they can obtain various licenses. And we figured out that AI is rapidly advancing at the same time. And what if we can combine our knowledge of compliance with the new technology? What can be the result of this? And this is how CompliancePlay AI was born. That was the idea behind it.
Okay, excellent. There's a lot of things to analyze in that, but can you break down the business model for me in terms of CompliancePlay? How does it work? Obviously, I know that you're dealing with operators and platforms, but just in terms of how you set up internally and how you relate with your customers.
So we have built a model using open language models. So we used AI technology to monitor official announcements, regulatory frameworks, guidelines, directives, you name it. So we noticed, working together with Ralitsa, that we had clients come to us and said, well, they just typed this in ChatGPT and that's what it says. And we typed this policy in ChatGPT and that's what it says. And we thought to ourselves, I mean, great that you care, that you put this in ChatGPT and you did the work, but it doesn't give you the right answer because it looks at everything without context. It doesn't understand regulation. I mean, it can cite it, it can give you a block of text and explain what it says, but it doesn't give you the right intention of, let's say, what did the UKGC think when they typed this in? So our platform is aimed to solve all of that. It interprets the legislation, highlights it, it gives you in a digestible manner, so that everyone in the organization, from the marketing department to the customer support, anybody can read it, understand it, digest it, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to read through 200 different types of pages and pull all-nighters just for this. So our goal with this is to make everyone's life easier, and that's what we use the OpenAI language model for. So essentially think of it as a language model that is trained. So you also have this human validation layer. So we train it by seeing what answers it gives us, and we give it feedback. So we say, okay, this is good, this is not good. This is good, this is not good. Use this language, don't use this language. And with that combination, that's pretty much the highlight of how this business works, like combining natural language model with this human validation efforts and making sure that the product is very much trained to understand this industry, which is ever changing and ever evolving. And it also can give you updates and highlight like what's going on right now in regulation. Let's say with the UKGC affordability checks, people can also use it potentially to implement this affordability checks. And I think this is where CompliancePlay AI really stands out, and that's why we're so proud to have built this.
So just with regard to new legislation that comes in, obviously my knowledge of AI, I know the terminology of, open language models, and I've heard it being talked about, but just in terms of new regulatory matters that come in, essentially do you feed it information on top of that massive learning model, or how does it work?
So you can see it like a new team member that has joined your team, but this team member has tremendous capabilities. Let's say to read like thousands of pages in seconds, to get the information, to like analyze this information in seconds, much quicker than any human can possibly do. So think of this new member that we kind of integrated in our team. And we started training on compliance in the iGaming industry. So this team member is like trained exactly which documents they should be checking. They're trained how exactly they should answer certain questions regarding the regulations. And you keep training them as like you would train a human, but this human has like, let's say, the ability to analyze it and to gather the information and to run through it much quicker. And we also kind of break down this information so the AI agent can like know exactly where to pick up the bits and pieces and kind of build your answer in the best possible way. Analyzing, let's say, for any market where we launch the agent, we train it only using official information that is provided by regulators.
Okay. And just with regard to, obviously, there's a lot of information going in, and one of the terminologies or words that is used a lot in AI is the fact that the AI outputs can be hallucinations. How do you put in a process, that human layer process, to make sure to try and catch these hallucinations or these incorrect outputs?
So we have been spending a lot of hours training the model, and there's some quite fascinating things. Let's say me and Isabelle can train it at the same time. She can ask something, and I can ask almost exactly the same thing, and we can get different answers. So we've been spending a lot of hours to train the model how to answer certain questions. And for instance, if we see an answer that is not exactly what we expected, or that is like contains some level of hallucination, we tell the like agent, okay, this is not the right answer. You should answer it in a like completely different way. And next time you ask the same question, you would see that your feedback is taken and the agent has answered in the way we wanted it to answer.
Excellent. And just with regard to, obviously, it's all about compliance. It's all about regulatory matters and codes of conduct across different territories. Is it license holders who would access this? And is it a specific type of department that would access it? Or is it different levels of people? You mentioned that customer services would be people that would access your outputs.
I mean, essentially, anybody can use it, even when it comes to markets which are up and coming, for example, in Latin America or anywhere else. It really depends. I mean, this tool obviously is an AI assistant, so it will help the compliance officer's team usually, but it can really be used by anyone in the organization. And that's the beauty of using the AI platform is that it's so easy to use. It has a very friendly interface, but essentially we can start from, let's say, the compliance officers, and then you can spread it out anyone in the organization on pretty much any jurisdiction. So what's really good about this is that the versatility and the opportunities with this is really significant. You can train it on any jurisdiction.
What are the jurisdictions that you've done it at the moment?
Right now, we have trained it on the UK. So we have trained it very specifically UK. We have seen the demand for the UK is exponential and ever-changing and ever-evolving. I think anyone who is in the UK market is listening and say, yes, we have been working all-nighters just to keep up. So this has really been such a game changer, I think, for the UK market, with more markets, of course, to follow.
Can you just walk me through an example? You talked about the vulnerability checks that the UK GC are bringing in and changing. Can you just walk through the example of how CompliancePlay would either change their outputs based on this new regulatory requirement, and also how operators would access that information?
I mean, when it comes to the affordability checks, we have heard so much information. I mean, people pretty much know what it's about by now. People just don't know how to implement it, for example. So what you can do with the OpenAI platform is you can ask, okay, how do I implement it? What are the thresholds? Can you explain, for example, using our policies, can you explain the gaps that is missing? Can you, in the future, give us a score? How well are we doing? Kind of like you're in school, but you're not. But I would like to think that everyone in any business always wants to evolve, so they always kind of have to be educated. So this really is the primary tool that will tell you, okay, this is how you can implement it. From the lighter checks, this is the threshold, etc., etc. And what's an easy way to digest that information that everybody's aware of what's going on? How can you implement it in your policies? Give me a gap analysis. So it's really dedicated to save compliance officers primarily, but really anybody a whole lot of time.
Okay. And in your experiences, what are the biggest compliance headaches that gambling companies face at the moment?
The sheer pace at which the regulations probably evolve, I think, leaves people, I don't know, with gray hairs at this point. The regulation
They're lucky if they have grey hairs. So
This is no, I'm not giving jabs at anyone, but I think we've heard that. This will give me gray hair. This will make my hair fall out. And I'm like, listen, if you want to have good skin and less gray hair and all of it, you just have to make your life less stressful, which obviously it's 2025. Mental health is huge, and we'll go into that as well. So we really want to make the process as streamlined as possible. And I think in this industry as well, there is no black and white. Really, you hear the word gambling, some people can say, oh my God, terrible. And some people can say, great, source of entertainment. So the idea is really to streamline these operations to simply make everybody's lives, especially when it comes to the compliance department who gets faced with 100 different questions a day, much easier.
Yeah. What surprised me is there's the new statutory levy that's come into play. Even though I was aware of it coming in, it was only, I believe, 3 days ago that I realised that they were backdating the levies for the previous financial year. I thought it was a levy that would be moving forward from 1st of April to 2025 for the next 12 months. So it really surprised me that I was almost going to be paying for a year backdated. And is this a typical example of how regulations can surprise people even though they've been announced for quite a while and then it changes, or people just find out very late in the day of the absolute detail of it?
Yeah, that's different ways the different regulators work. For instance, many of the regulators, especially let's say in Eastern Europe or Central Europe, they don't do long consultations like the UK GC would. Sometimes they would announce change in the law or change in the requirements that they can even backdate it, that say, okay, you had to start doing this from yesterday. So a lot of operators are caught by surprise. Sometimes, let's say, these changes are not well announced even on the regulator websites. So this is where CompliancePlay AI can come in, because we are monitoring all these changes. Let's say if we have an operator, we can give that is subscribed to certain markets, they can get the updates for these markets in real time, and this would eliminate this kind of surprises for them. But as your example, yes, we've seen this happening over and over again. regulations being backdated. They come with some conflicting let's say, strange requirements from the regulatory authority. So yeah, it's been a pain for the operators.
So just with regard to compliance and technology, where do you see it heading in the next few years, and should we be ready for?
I mean, you see how technology is ever changing. I'll be surprised if by 2030 we don't all have robots in our house. Hopefully we won't end up like Will Smith in iRobot, but just in general, I think technology is changing so rapidly. It's crazy. And I think when it comes to compliance, people, like you said in the beginning, they use it as like a checkbox exercise. Like, we're going to go by a list. Have we done this? Great. But what we see also with the fines that are coming out and that people are demanding more social responsibility is that the stakes will be higher, and the responsibility is no longer just, okay, this is what we have to do. No, it's expected at a much higher level because the stakes are higher. No one wants to spend millions in fines when you can spend your money somewhere else. That's just the bottom line. So when it comes to compliance in general, we do believe that technology is going to be such a game changer. We really do believe. So when Ralitsa and I started working together, we understood that manual compliance is good. Like, you need that human validation layer, but it's not going to get you there in the long term. What you need is automation so that you don't have to wait a week, 2 weeks to get a policy and handbook. You can get it in 5 minutes with technology that has been trained to do so.
Okay. And just when you were just talking there about the element of a box ticking exercise and making sure that people are compliant, there is a resolution, or there is a satisfaction, or a reliance on, okay, I've followed all the orders and I've followed everything that I should be doing, and you can rest at mind with that. But essentially, a lot of these elements are brought into play to protect vulnerable people and to do player protection. How does CompliancePlay help protect the vulnerable people within the industry? Because I guess compliance is always there just to protect the players.
I mean, Ralitsa and I have been in the industry. I mean, Ralitsa much more than I. Our expertise, there is an abundance of it. But we also understand the industry. And I think what's really important to start out with is that gambling does not cause addiction. Like, there is no direct correlation. It's like I'm telling you, oh, you went out last night, you had a glass of wine. Okay, now you're alcoholic. Okay, I had pancakes for breakfast, so I'm addicted to sugar. Like, the correlation, people often assume it's there. And what we really aim to have, especially with our platform, is understand the industry. So by using also technology, we can understand and incorporate responsible gambling in a way that can also train your employees. Because people often think, okay, you gamble, so that's a singular cause of addiction. It's not. You have to think of it like a cake or a milkshake. There are layers of it. It's escalating behavior. Are you chasing losses? Are you lying to family members? Are you experiencing financial harm? There are so many things that comes out of it. Even looking at the DSM-5 criteria, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, it categorizes gambling and gambling disorders in general as behavioral addictions, which means there's many layers to it. It's the progression for recreational play to a diagnostic gambling problem. So there are lots of tools right now that can help companies identify, okay, what's the problem? But there are no tools right now that tells you what you have to follow, how do you have to follow it, and what is the best way to incorporate these changes. So when clients come to us, Ralitsa and I, they basically ask us, okay, what do you have to incorporate? We can tell them, we can just give them the legal text and say, oh, here you go. But we often ask them, what's sustainable for you? What's not going to harm your bottom line? Because truth of the matter is, no company is going to implement policies, procedures, rules if it's going to harm their profit. So we want the best of both worlds here. So we want people to also understand that they have to be responsible, but we also, and especially with this platform, make them realize that it can still lead them to make long-term profits by not having fines and by adhering to these social responsibilities. And gambling in general, I think, is viewed very negatively, but people don't really understand that there's so many factors, psychological, environmental, all of it to it, that even AI really understands, let's say, a bit of the DSM-5 criteria, how it identifies behavioral addictions, interprets that with the regulations, and analyzes it in a very digestible manner. Think about what you can do and think about how easy and cost-effective it will be to implement these strategies.
Yeah, it reminds me of the podcast that I did recently with Dan Spencer from Epic, and he was talking about his gambling addiction history. And it echoes exactly what you were saying, that the gambling addiction was as a result of having issues and underlying personal situations that weren't being addressed, and the outlet, it manifested itself within this gambling addiction story. So, it's
Exactly.
exactly what you were saying there.
I mean, people think this is the cause. And I often tell people, well, I like sugar, for example, in the morning. So am I now addicted to sugar? No, there are layers. You have to see it as a potential catalyst rather than giving a guaranteed cause. I think the media loves putting this like in a negative light. You look at Netflix and everybody's promoting, using drugs or like drinking alcohol, which is totally normal. But gambling, no, that's a different zone. And I think the more technology you use, the more you realize that, okay, obviously there are effects to it, but like nobody can tell you anything else. Question is, how do you deal with it? And how do you look at vulnerable population? Even nowadays, if you look at the state of the world in general, I mean, people have heightened anxiety, people are facing depression. So these are all layers to that cake that you have to add to understand, okay, what's the background of this individual? It's no longer, okay, people of a certain age, people of a certain gender, that is no longer relevant, I think, in this day and age. And that's something that we see as well often in this industry.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and talk more in detail about CompliancePlay, because it's something that really interests me. Just in terms of my introduction to you both was through Kelly from Defy the Odds, which is a startup tech for the gambling industry, for want of a better description. I'm sure you'll be able to give more detail than me, but can you just explain to me what your relationship is with Defy the Odds, how they're helping you in terms of launching CompliancePlay, and what stage are you at in terms of going to market with your business?
So Defy the Odds is an incredible organization led by the most outstanding women. We just had a conversation not too long ago. I believe it was a few days even with Ralitsa, where we were in a meeting with Kelly and we said, this is our example. This is incredible. These women have unlocked what it means to be powerful and kind and empathetic and intelligent. So we have been partnering with them, and we have been fortunate enough to have been working with them in a way that just give this platform also the audience that it needs to getting to the right people, to showcasing it in general. And that's the primary goal that we have right now, is getting this platform to the wider public and expanding our network, because we have had such a good feedback after our trip to ICE, for example. But you know for a fact how big this industry can be, and sometimes people don't know about it, or people don't know how to use it. People have questions, they don't know where to turn to. No one's going to look for like 10 different names, on LinkedIn or whatever. So it's really has become such a godsend to have such an incredible network of incredible people to work with us.
I will throw my hands up and say that I probably am victim of unconscious bias. When I saw the Defy the Odds brandings, I literally went onto the website and I was looking at the founders, and I was...
You're not the only one.
Yeah, well...
Not the only one. No, but I can tell you, for example, when I first started working with Ralitsa, I remember we were in a team, and I think we were the only two women, and I thought to myself, this woman I want to work with. Now her I want to work with more than anyone else, because she knew the answers. She wasn't sugarcoating it. And I think in this day and age, yes, it's very easy to say you have to look past the gender. And it does probably take us a little bit more effort as women to kind of make our place. But I think we're just breaking glass ceilings at this point, that we can, work full time. We can do it all. We can use technology to our advantage just as anybody else can. And I think Defy the Odds is probably also the best example to prove that.
Yeah, it was refreshing to see that as their founder story of both of them at Defy the Odds, but also just in terms of, while it is refreshing to see it, I did actually step back, and it goes beyond tokenism when you look at the experience of that management team, and they are steeped in, years of gambling industry history.
Anybody can join them for a meeting. They will be humbled.
Yeah,
they will definitely be humbled.
And so, is it a mentorship program, or do they give you financial support, or how does it work?
It's more like informal relationship, but we are reaching out to them for advice when we are unsure how to approach certain situations. So they've been very valuable mentors to us, in addition to like helping us with their network. They've been also like very supportive of the idea that is behind CompliancePlay. Once we briefed them about what the software can do, they were like, okay, we think that the gambling industry really needs this. And we will stay behind you on this because we can see like the positive change that your product can do. And just having this like backup from these powerful women is really valuable for us.
Okay.
Also, when it comes to brainstorming, for example, like they can give us ideas we never thought about.
Mm.
So it's incredible to see people have such tremendous success and experience in this industry tell you, okay, but this, what do you think about this? That's what you think about this. So from that point of view as well, it's incredible.
I guess as two co-founders, it's good to have that level of experience just to lean back on and just to sense check everything that you're doing and making sure that you're making the right decisions, and just leaning back into Defy the Odds allows you to there go, okay, yeah, we're making the right decision here. And just what stage are you at with CompliancePlay? Are you currently being used by operators, or are you under trial, or is it something that you're going to market with?
We are now on the market. CompliancePlay AI is available. It has available also by subscriptions, and there's a lot now in the pipeline when it comes to the clients that have approached us, the jurisdictions that we are thinking about us doing next. So Ralitsa and I are really working around the clock to make this as good as possible. But it is available right now, and people can also request a demo, go on our website, look at the clips and movies that we have shot to explain how to use it, how best to use them. And so pretty much no longer at the beginning stage.
How long does it take to modify CompliancePlay for a particular customer or a particular regulatory jurisdiction?
That would depend. Go
I
ahead.
would say about 1 to 2 weeks, depending how
Wow.
complex the jurisdiction is and what the client's requirements are. But some clients, let's say they want their agent to be integrated in their like internal systems like Slack, Teams, Confluence, you name it. So that takes a few days from the technical perspective, and adding a jurisdiction, let's say maybe like given a complex jurisdiction like Brazil, can take up to a week, as the technology is really advancing. So it breaks down the information and like we update the systems like quite fast. So I would say about between 1 and 2 weeks to onboard a new client.
And just as co-founders, again, obviously things are stretched in terms of resources and time. How are you finding that balance between developing the product and promoting the product? Because you could spend ages developing the product, but you've got to get yourselves out there, right?
Yes, so we thought like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect to get it out, because everything can be tailored, everything can be changed as we go. There's another thing with AI, it's advancing and it's changing as we speak. So when we started, the first time I remember when I opened like ChatGPT and I saw the answers, I was thinking, okay, it's like, I cannot rely on this. But the reality is like, if you have the right information behind the models, then the answers can improve so quick. And so we're just keeping up to date. We are doing things as we go along. So we have a product, but this product is being developed alongside the technological developments and the regulatory developments.
Are we likely to see you at industry events anytime soon, or have you got any plans to be exhibiting or anything like that?
Not just yet. We were at ICE, which is probably the biggest of the biggest, I would say, where we had really good feedback from a lot of our clients. And for the future now, we're really focusing on having the platform speak for itself. As Ralitsa said, the technology is moving rapidly. So now our key focus is on the people that we have right now, potentially growing our team, growing our resources, growing in jurisdictions. Yeah, maybe ask us again in a couple of
Hopefully
months.
for the next days, we hope that we'll be in a position to exhibit.
Is CompliancePlay an expensive product for operators and platforms?
No, is the really straight up answer. What's expensive is non-compliance. I think we have seen non-compliance. There's a really good quote about that. If you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. It's much cheaper than paying 10, 20, 15 million in fines. We have very tailored subscription models where if you want to just use it, you're not going to be more than, let's say, 1,500, 2,000, for example, depending on what you need. So it can really be the best assistant without hurting your bottom line. Obviously, more features would require more cost, but then we have also seen that the long-term benefits of it outweigh those costs that For example, if you'd had a fine for 10 million, you could have easily spent that, using AI to streamline operations.
And just with regard to that, changing that viewpoint of compliance not being expensive in comparison to non-compliance, is there anything that the AI and the CompliancePlay model can help solve the stigma of gambling, the gambling industry, and gambling-related harms?
Potentially, because our AI platform, think of it as an equation. So we have the technology plus the human validation effort. So equals opportunities. I'm just going to put it like that. Because when it comes to the stigma, when it comes to especially the media, I think we've seen it Ralitsa that the media just needs something to talk about sometimes. And yes, we see a lot of failure from businesses which could have been prevented. But using technology, it can help you identify, okay, this needs to be done. So you can implement this 6 months in advance, 3 months in advance, etc. So it will increase that social responsibility level amongst companies. To say that we can single-handedly, Ralitsa and I, change how the media thinks about gambling, a little far-fetched, not gonna lie. But in general, we do believe that if we make social corporate responsibility easier for companies and in a way that doesn't harm the bottom line, so they can see the long-term profits without minimizing that social corporate responsibility, the opportunities are endless. So we hope to help. To say that we're magicians, probably not going to be pulling rabbits out of hats anytime soon, but, we can try to contribute to that.
One of the main ideas we had behind CompliancePlay is to turn compliance from something being reactive to something proactive. Because a lot of the companies are lagging behind. They say, it takes us a lot of time to implement something. It takes us a lot of time to write the policy, to understand it, and so on. So with the AI advancing, there wouldn't be such excuses. And we believe that empowering the operators to stay ahead with their compliance obligations can allow them the time and resources to implement something more proactively and to really advance their social procedures, their money laundering policies, and go above and beyond what the regulators expect from them. So we hope to see this coming in the next few years. And we know it's a fast stretch, but we really hope that there wouldn't be any excuses and the operators would willingly go and say, okay, we want to do better.
I think that ambition and that foresight in order to go above and beyond the regulatory requirements is, a real positive way to end this podcast. It's been great to have you on. I've been super interested in CompliancePlay. Where is the best place to find out about CompliancePlay?
Anywhere. Our website. We also have an incredible demo on YouTube, on LinkedIn, where you can see what's going on with the platform. We also try to make these posts as engaging and sometimes funny so people can not fall asleep while reading, but really be engaged. So really from LinkedIn to our website to following us on various platforms, such as LinkedIn or TikTok even.
Okay, brilliant. So what I'll do is I'll put all the links down in the show notes of the podcast, wherever you're reading this. It's been great to have you on. I'm going to be super keen to follow your journey in the coming months. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of developments with the fast pace of AI. Thank you very much for your time today. It's been much appreciated, and I hope everyone's enjoyed listening to this new exciting project called CompliancePlay. Thanks again, guys.